Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Jason. How are you this evening?
It's going pretty well, and I'm really quite looking forward to this playoff matchup coming on Saturday. And I think it'll be a nice little break. Lots of busyness in my day job right now, so it'll be nice to watch this one. Although I don't think I'm going to get a chance to watch it in person, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know as a pharmacist, you're kind of entering the busy time of year with cold and flu season right around the corner, aren't you?
Yeah, that's very true. It is our busier time of year. You know, every profession seems to have those times where they get a bit of a rush. I guess, you know, toy store in Christmas time and tax time for accountants, and I guess even for journalists, that's election season, isn't it?
Yeah. Any election campaign and then election night is always a good time. It always stretches pretty late into the night. But anyway, that's our day jobs. I know we're here to chat about Calgary soccer, so excited to jump into that once again with you.
For sure. And if you are a new listener, what is the YYC Soccer Podcast all about, Scott?
Our podcast focuses on soccer in Calgary at the amateur, collegiate, and professional levels. We talk about the teams and the players from the city's soccer community, all the way from the grassroots and amateur leagues up to the university and professional level.
In this episode, we're going to discuss a lot of Cavalry talk for sure. We're going to go over the final match last weekend against Pacific and the trophy ceremony. We'll talk about the playoff matchup coming up this weekend against Forge. Also some talk about USports and SAIT. And we'll also talk a little bit about Canadian U17 Nationals.
Right, another busy episode, but excited to delve into these topics.
Let's talk about last week's Cavalry matchup. They played their final regular season match of the year, and they defeated Pacific 3-0 on a very pleasant Saturday afternoon at Spruce Meadows.
Yeah, and there's lots of talking points. There's the match itself was a pretty comfortable win for Cavalry, but the big kind of event of the afternoon was the trophy lift at the end. Cavalry players got to hoist the Canadian Premier League Shield, which is the new regular season trophy, after the game. In terms of other match talking points, Dan Klomp and Marco Carducci, as a result of playing another 90-minute shift, finished the 2023 season playing every single minute. Klomp put in another assured performance defensively and chipped in with a goal to kind of solidify his strong reputation as a candidate for the CPL's MVP award this year. And another talking point was that it was the fifth win in a row for Cavalry, who really did end the regular season on quite the tear.
Yeah, it was a comfortable win, and it never really seemed like it was that threatening from a Pacific standpoint. I actually was a bit surprised. I thought that Pacific would have played with a little bit more urgency myself, but it really was kind of what happened in those 90 minutes was sort of anticlimactic to what happened after the final whistle when we had the big celebration. That was pretty interesting and pretty fun, actually.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and there was even a bit of a pitch invasion before it. Hundreds of kids ran onto the field to celebrate with the players in front of the foot soldiers. So that was pretty cute to see. Yeah, as for the match itself, I guess we can mention, as I alluded to, Dan Klomp scored a goal, another one with his head off a corner kick from Ali Musi in the first half. And then the second half, Meyer Bevan scored what I believe is his 11th regular season goal. That puts him joint top of the CPL scoring charts alongside Ollie Bassett of Atletico Ottawa. And then right at the death, Mile Henry in the 94th minute capped off the match with a finish to make it 3-0. I agree with what you said about Pacific, considering that they were really playing for second place. They had a lot more to play for, and it seemed kind of odd that they rolled over the way they did.
It certainly was, though, overall, a pretty celebratory atmosphere at Spruce Meadows. And at the press conference afterwards, there were some great quotes from Marco Carducci and Tommy Wheeldon Jr. about the adversity Cavalry faced in the lead up to this accomplishment and this trophy win. So in lieu of an interview this week, we'll run some of the audio from those post-game comments, and we're going to run it right now.
It's an incredible feeling. Obviously, knowing that we'd secured the title 2 weeks ago was incredible and a great feeling to get that ahead of schedule. But to be able to share this moment with my teammates, with the staff, with the fans, I mean, that whole experience out there that's still going on is it's the stuff that you cherish, right? To be able to celebrate in front of our home fans who we owe so much to. So it feels great, and we're looking forward to enjoying this moment. Yeah, I think it shows our mentality. The game was not perfect by any means, but for us, it's been about the process and continuing forward. We had a difficult game against Valor last week in tough conditions, again, with the title secured, and we still went out and won. And then today was about just continuing that with that rhythm and that consistency. That's what's given us success all year. And like I said, credit to the boys who we fought. It wasn't easy by any means, but to go out with the regular season with a performance like this and a result like this feels great. These are the moments you live for as an athlete and as a competitor. So, for me, the coolest thing is just seeing what it means to these people and the city and the fans, and they've stuck with us the whole way through. And it feels great to be able to repay them a bit today. Well, it's exactly that, right? We've shown the quality of this team, and what makes this team great is the individuals as well. I think we look back on this last run we've been on with guys who've just continually stepped up, right? Whether it was clean sheets, blocks, goals, difficult moments, it didn't matter. The next guy stepped up and did it, and that recognition is deserved. I mean, for me personally, you look at a guy like Dan Klomp, who's been by far the MVP for me this season, without a doubt. Meyer Bevan capping off with the Golden Boot. Everyone's chipped in, and that's what's made us successful. Is we've done it together. Listen, this club means a lot to so many people, myself included. I came back to Calgary in 2018, kind of lost. So in this moment, Tommy's sitting in the corner, by the way, but he gave me an opportunity. He built this from the ground up with so many other people, of course, the entire staff, the backroom staff, the people who don't get the recognition on a daily basis. But Tommy's the front of that. He's built this club from the ground up. He's given us something to follow. We've never strayed from that path, and that's because of his leadership. So for me as a player, it's a wonderful achievement to win something with him again. And I hope it's now, I suppose, the second of many. So we'll keep going. But Tommy deserves all the credit that he's been getting lately, and we'll keep going. But we owe a lot to him and to the rest of the staff of this club.
Yeah, surreal. It feels really good, and it's something we've been chasing at the start of the season when the commissioner had brought in the first place wins the shield. We didn't know what it would be, and then when they revealed it, and a place in CONCACAF and a new playoff format, we knew that was the first target to get, and to have done it emphatically, to be honest. And it's probably been the most competitive CPL season we've known in the past 5 seasons. And all because the league means something, and now the playoffs mean something. So let's keep celebrating both, but it feels bloody good. Yeah, they're part of a wonderful team, and everybody can step up, because we talk about starters, finishers, key players. What we don't see from Meyer Bevan is the work rate he does, and you've seen the celebration because everyone sees what he does on the pitch as his teammate. Dan Klomp and Marco Carducci have played every single minute. Sergio's been chipping away and leading from there to, Fiske and Fraser Ed coming on and giving us that quality, to young Mile Henry. The list goes on, and I can't name all the 23 off the top of my head, but what a way to do it, because it was what we wanted to do in front of our fans. They deserved a performance like that to celebrate us lifting the trophy. The adversity, and we've got a saying in our club about adapt and overcome, and 2 out of the 5 seasons have been hit by a pandemic that we never knew was coming. It feels like this is where it should have been. We've had to survive and thrive, and the person who was just on the microphone now, I can't speak highly enough of Marco Carducci. Last year he fought off cancer and gave us all strength, and I think he gave us the realism when we were knocked out in playoffs. It was emotional, but he won the battle of life and has gone on and played every single minute now, and boys are just playing with his freedom. So I think what we'll see is we faced adversity, we were resilient with it and kept going. And I think if anybody's struggling in life in general, just keep going. Yeah, and to quote Mr. Southern, our president, Ian Allison, always used to tell me, even in the days when we didn't have a great result, I'd always get a text or a call from him and says, take the day to bleed and a day to celebrate. And I tell you, we're going to celebrate today because it's not every year. There's a lot of players in there that have never lifted a piece of silverware in their life. Now they get to. So we're going to enjoy it. We're going to enjoy it with our families, our spouses, our partners, the people who have been there through thick and thin. We'll probably recover on Sunday. And then we'll focus on our next trophy to attack on Monday. Listen, there's anybody that says there's there's success without suffering a lion. There's a lot of suffering. There's times, I had to look at myself in the mirror in the off season and question the methods, whether I was the right guy with that, and had to have a cold hard look at it. And I just. You find this new lease of life, and your family are always there. My wife's here in the press conference with me, so she's seen a lot of the things that I've been through, and you just keep going. And I think what we've got is we've got an ownership group that are champions, and they're always champions because there was once a commercial about if you fall down, just pick yourself up, and I think that's what you've seen. Is we're champions, whether we win or lose, that's indifferent. We always get back up, we always get back on the horse, and we keep going. And we're not just building for one piece of silverware, we're moving players overseas to Europe. We're, packing fans week in, week out. You're seeing Calgary logos everywhere. Next year, we'll be in CONCACAF playing against possibly the world's greatest ever player. And this is guys that we've brought out of Calgary minus soccer, playing on Glenmore Athletic Park or the Soccer Centre or the UFC and USports and Eric Kobza. It's what dreams are made of, and I couldn't be more thankful for the Southern family and everything that they've given this city.
So let's look ahead to the playoffs here. On Saturday, the Cavs will play 3 p.m. at Spruce Meadows, and they will face Forge.
Yeah, there's a couple of points to mention. If Cavalry win this, they go straight through to the CPL Championship Final, and they would host that at Spruce Meadows on Saturday, October 28th. If Cavalry lose, they would face the winner of the other playoff game happening that day, which is between HFX Wanderers and Pacific FC. And that would essentially be a semifinal, and it would also be at Spruce Meadows. Even if they don't win this game, Cavalry still has a potential route to the final, and they would still have home field advantage, which is, I guess, the main advantage of finishing first in the regular season.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how this is all going to play out from the format standpoint. I think there's definitely some advantage here about finishing higher in the standings in the regular season, and it does give you some opportunity to, take a misstep and still recover. So I think in theory, it sounds pretty good. So I guess we'll see how it actually plays out, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, it is the most convoluted playoff format the CPL has ever introduced, but it seems to be working out the way it was probably intended, which is to reward the teams that finished higher up the table and challenge the teams that just squeaked into the playoffs, such as York, right? And Pacific, too, I guess. Pacific are obviously in the other match happening this Saturday, which is against HFX Wanderers, who are on, positive run of form and at home. So I would look at HFX as the favorites in that one, especially considering Pacific just had 2 back-to-back matches on Wednesday and Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. I think that if you had to play that match on Wednesday, which Pacific did, I think it definitely puts them at a disadvantage, and then long road trips. So, but getting back to the Cavs Forge match, I know you pulled out a bunch of information about streaks and recent performances, but and I'll let you take it from there. But really, Forge has not been in their top form over the last several games. They've kind of limped into the playoffs based on their current results from the last several games.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that they managed to still finish in second, which is actually a result of I think it was the 3rd or 4th tiebreaker with HFX, because remarkably Forge and Halifax finished with the exact same record and goals for and goals against. But no, if you look back in recent weeks, Forge lost their last 2 regular season games. They only picked up 2 wins in their last 5 regular season games. And if you go back all the way to early August, they've actually only won 4 out of their last 10. And in those 10 games, they picked up 13 points, so an average of just 1.3 per game. Into this playoff match on a 5-game win streak, a 9-match overall unbeaten streak, and I'm pretty sure they've won 6 or 7 straight at Spruce Meadows. So they're definitely going to be looked at as the favorites, considering that positive form and home field advantage.
One other point I was going to mention here is that the Cavs are going in with a full roster. They have no real injuries, anything like that. I know, Scott, we were discussing before, do Forge have any injuries? And I'm not sure about that, but actually my understanding is that one of the regular players for Forge, his name is Garvin Methuselah, he got called up for the matches that Haiti are playing in this window. So unless there's been some kind of special arrangement made to miss one of the matches and then go to the other, which is possible, I guess, but it seems likely that he's going to miss this match. So that is a bit of a loss for Forge, because I believe he is a regular for them. Let's move on to some post-secondary action, and we'll talk a little bit about SAIT and what their teams have been up to. On the women's side, SAIT played a couple matches on the weekend, and they beat Ambrose. I think it was 16-0 again. So I think that was very similar to the score they had last time. And they also beat Augustana. They're currently in second place in the South Division of the Alberta College Conference. They have 24 points, which is the same as Lethbridge College, but they've played one more game. So essentially, they're in second. They're ranked number 10 nationally, and that is actually an increase. They were number 14 previously. On the men's side, SAIT played Ambrose, and they won 5-0. They still have a spotless record. They're in first place. They've clinched a playoff spot, and they are still ranked nationally number 2, just like they have been for the last, I think, several weeks.
Yeah, that's a big jump for the SAIT women's team to go from 14th nationally ranked to cracking the top 10. It's good recognition for it's been a strong season for them. Obviously, they had that blip against Lethbridge, but I think their record is 8-1 or 9-1 outside of that big game.
That's right. And really, I think almost all their other games haven't even been particularly close. I can't remember what the score was in this Augustana game on the weekend, but again, they really haven't faced tons of adversity with the exception of that one Lethbridge match.
Yeah, they haven't put many feet wrong, and neither of the Trojans, the male team as well. I mean, obviously, they just keep pounding teams, getting clean sheets. 7-0 at the moment, deserved first place, and clinched a playoff spot. They really, they should get some plaudits, I think, from Calgary's media. I think they're, ranked second nationally heading toward the end of the regular season. Phenomenal campaign for the Trojans, in all honesty.
Definitely. So let's move on to USports, and on the women's side of things, we'll start talking about the Dinos. They played Lethbridge and they beat them 4-1. They're currently in third place in the Prairie Division. It does appear right now that it's a bit of a toss-up. MacEwan, University of Saskatchewan, the Dinos, they're going to end up in the top 3. It's just unclear exactly which order they're going to be in, but a playoff spot is clinched for them. Despite the fact that they did have a convincing win this week, they did fall out of the national top 10. They were number 10, and now they're out of the top 10. So, but overall, I think they're clearly on the right track here. For Mount Royal on the women's side, they played Victoria, and they went to Victoria and they won 2-0, which is unexpected result. That's a tough place to play, and Victoria is always a good side. They then went up to Edmonton and they played MacEwan. That was the match that got suspended in September due to bad air quality. And I believe when the match was suspended, it was 2-0, and they resumed it where it was. And the final score was 3-1 for MacEwan. So they lost that. So I think there's some kind of mathematical, theoretical possibility they can make the playoffs, but it's all but official that they're not going to make it in this year.
Yeah. And I remember we talked last week with Karina Kassam from the Cougars, who mentioned that they basically needed to win out the rest of their season. And it seems like that Cinderella finish was kept alive by that win against Victoria, but they came crashing back to reality quite quickly with that road trip to McEwen to place one of Canada West's strongest teams this season.
And let's talk about the men's. Mount Royal men's, they had the week off. They're still in first place in the Prairie Division. With the season almost over, I don't think there's any scenario where they can finish worse than second place. I think it is possible that Alberta could catch them, but they've definitely clinched their playoff spot. Even though they didn't play this week, they still went up in the rankings. They went up from number 6 to number 5. Let's move on and talk about the UC Dinos. Their men's side, they played Saskatchewan this weekend, and they beat them 2-1. They're in third place in the Prairie Division, and it looks like right now in the standings that the Dinos, Lethbridge, and McEwen, those three teams will be fighting essentially for third and fourth place. The playoffs are certainly within reach for the Dinos. They're not having the dominant season that Mount Royal is, but it looks like they're likely to see some postseason action.
Yeah, and I know the Dinos will finish the regular season with another Crowchild Classic hosted at Mount Royal's stadium. So that'll be an interesting game. I'd really like to make it out to that one. I think it's on October 21st.
Yeah, it's the last game of the season for both teams, I think.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if Mount Royal, rests their starters with thoughts of the playoffs the week after, or if they will, want to maintain their strong showings against Dinos in recent Crowchild Classics and go for the win. But it seems like the Dinos will likely have a bit more to play for that day.
It'll be an interesting one. I think whenever those two teams match up, it's always a cool event, but there will be stakes in that game. It won't just be for pride. It'll also be for jostling for positioning.
That's right. And before we move on away from post-secondary soccer, I did want to mention some interesting news that broke recently. Shout out to Ben Steiner and 49sport.com. He wrote this article. He reported that in Canada West women's soccer, cross-divisional play has been eliminated, meaning that I believe as of 2024, there will no longer be matches between the Prairie and Pacific teams. And as we've talked about a bit this year in this podcast, the MRU Cougars are currently playing in the Pacific Division despite being a Prairies-based team. And every couple of years, I guess it's their turn to do that. Yeah, according to Ben's article, the Canada West season will remain at 14 games for all teams, and then an 8-team single elimination playoff bracket will be held. And this wasn't explicitly stated, but the 8-team playoff would eliminate the current setup, which includes a number 4 versus number 5 playing game.
Yeah, when we interviewed Tino Fusco, the Mount Royal women's coach, several episodes ago, he kind of alluded to changes happening that were in the works for format, and he wasn't very specific about how it was all going to play out, but he kind of gave us the preview that something was going to happen and something was going to change. And I guess this is essentially what that was. So for whichever team in Alberta that has to cross over to the Pacific, it's, they're not going to have the benefit of playing any matches at all against, Saskatchewan teams or Alberta teams. I guess Manitoba teams, it's probably not that big a difference, because if you're going to Winnipeg or you're going to Kelowna, it's probably easier to go to Kelowna realistically. But it would be kind of nice if another BC-based university could make it into USports. I was reading within the last week or so that apparently there are a couple of universities in BC that are currently playing in the BC equivalent of the college system. I think it's Capilano University and Vancouver Island University. And they've been toying with the idea of moving up to USports. I don't know how realistic or close that is, but from the perspective of the women's soccer and balancing out the divisions, that would be hugely advantageous, because if one of those schools got in, then that would kind of prevent an Alberta team move to the Pacific Division each year.
Yeah. And I think I like what you said about Vancouver Island University specifically. So that's a Nanaimo-based university. And I believe I'm not sure on the women's side, but I know their men's teams have been really strong over the years. They've even won a couple of national championships. Yeah, I think that's what I would like to see as well, because I think it is a disadvantage to be in Alberta and play in Pacific Division. I mean, climate's different. There's more travel involved. Obviously, every other team has to come to you once, but almost every other weekend you're flying out to BC. So tough for whatever team it's going to be. Hopefully it's not a Calgary-based team, because then that would eliminate the Crowchild Classic, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, I think it would be great actually if there was a way that we could get more teams in USports, and it would be nice to get Simon Fraser back, but that's a whole other story. And I just went down the rabbit hole of reading all the stuff about Simon Fraser's football team and how that all ended up. And yeah, that's a really crazy, complicated situation. So I don't think we'll be seeing Simon Fraser in USports anytime soon. Last topic we wanted to hit this week before we signed off was the national championships. So this past weekend, there were the senior men's and senior women's national championships, and there were also the U17 and U15 national championships. For all those tournaments, there was only one Calgary-based team involved, and that was in the U17 women's, and it was Calgary West United. They were playing in Moncton. They did really well. They won their group and they made it to the championship match. In the final, they did lose to Burnaby and came in ultimately with second place. But overall, a pretty good showing on their part. So kudos to them and congrats. I think that's obviously it's a bit disappointing to lose in the final, but I think that caps off a pretty fantastic year overall.
Yeah, and these national tournaments only have one representative per province, so they would have had to win provincials to qualify. Kudos to Calgary West United's U17 women's team for essentially being the second best U17 women's team in Canada. I'll put you in the spot, Jason. Do you know who's coaching that team by any chance?
Oh, I'm not sure. That team is kind of a weird amalgam. It has a lot of Calgary Blizzard content on it, even though it's not the Calgary Blizzard. If you actually looked at the listing of the coaches, there's a list of about 4 or 5 coaches on there. And there are names like Connor Brady with Calgary West, and also Diogo Raposo is on the list. And I believe another coach from Blizzard. So I'm not actually sure, because both of those gentlemen have a lot of responsibilities with SAIT and University of Calgary respectively. So actually, I don't know who was coaching in Moncton per se, but there's a lot of Blizzard connections there, even though it wasn't actually labeled Blizzard.
Interesting. And SAIT connections as well, you said. So you got to wonder, I mean, maybe those players will be playing for SAIT in a couple of seasons.
Yeah. Well, my understanding is that Connor Brady, who's the men's coach for SAIT, he's also the technical director for Calgary West. I think, like I said, somehow this was a mashup of Calgary West and Blizzard, and that's why both of those guys were listed as coaches. So again, I'm not too sure about all the details, but thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can subscribe to this podcast by using all the usual podcasting platforms. Head over to our website at yycsoccer.com, where there's more information about how to subscribe or to leave a question or comment. You can also follow us on Twitter or X at YYC Soccer 403. Thanks for listening.